He also hones in on the fact that both the athlete and the corporation, or just the entity, they have to be in alignment. That is very important. Do they have the same goals? Today we see Netflix, they have a complete different set of ambitions when it comes to movies versus, let's say, Hollywood or the other major movie studios. They want to go to movie theaters, but Netflix is really after customer retention. They're really a tech company, and just the overall artistic ways of just telling stories and presenting movies, they do not necessarily care about that. Matter of fact, they want a lot of these movie producers to repeat the plot in these storylines multiple times. As soon as the movie starts, they want an action scene, they wanted a certain explosion. They're a tech company. They're studying how to maintain people's retention.
Penny Hardaway, and this is where
But that's just injury, really.
No, but what I'm about to say is Penny is on and off the court, because Penny, as a player, forget about it. We all know what he could do. I mean,
there was a time in the NBA
where he was the best player.
A moment where it looked like if you couldn't have Michael Jordan,
give me
you
Penny
wanted
Hardaway.
Penny Hardaway.
Yes.
Just for a moment, it looked that way.
Yes, give me Penny Hardaway. And he had some of the flyest shoes and commercials. Penny Hardaway had really, I know people gonna get on me for saying this, but Penny's brand was incredible.
It was incredible.
I think, oh my God, man, Penny.
Because sometimes, because it wasn't even about what he was doing, it was about what you thought was coming. Like Penny was still on the way up.
Oh
he was going to get better than he was. We never really saw the best of him.
They asked me a question, if there was a player I could represent that I never represent, like who would be that dream guy? And I said Allen Iverson. I'm still saying Allen Iverson, because when I think about that, I think about who can I build a business with, because it's hard to do it with any player. The other one is, I have to add Penny Hardaway there, because Penny Hardaway had the opportunity to build, I do believe, a $1 billion business. And I think people get brand and IP and NIL, I think they get all that confused, because how many true brands in sports do you think there have been? Like true brands. And what do you...
In sports?
In sports. Because I want to know how you look at it from a brand perspective.
Through the era where that meant something? There have been brands in sports that were not monetized because of the time when they played.
I'm talking about a monetization perspective.
Obviously, MJ is number one.
Yes.
Yes. Kobe was monetized, and had a real brand. LeBron has a real brand. NBA guys probably easiest to
do it because they're not playing in a helmet and
no question, and because they have more influence on the outcome of a game because there are fewer players on the floor. You can run every play.
But do you think
them.
it's only basketball? Do you think it's only play driven?
No, it's more than play driven, but it's based on the play. It's based on the play, and if they did something Steph has a brand.
Now, if you notice right there, Max last second included Stephen Curry having a brand. I believe he does have that recognition, but he doesn't actually have a product, because for how great he is on the court, we do not necessarily even know his logo. Earlier in the conversation, Rich Paul talked about Penny Hardaway. The doll that he had on his commercials, even those were selling. And that 1 cent logo was also very recognizable. The way Nike rolled out the whole marketing plan for Penny Hardaway, there was multiple things happening all at once. Of course, his great play on the court, but also when they filmed that commercial, the doll that was played by an upcoming comedian at the time, Chris Rock, the voice was very unique. Matter of fact, the commercial was so good, LeBron James and Nike actually had imitated when he used to have the whole commercial with the multiple characters. That's a play off of Penny Hardaway and the Chris Rock doll commercials. That whole alter ego, because Penny was quiet, but the doll was really his ego talking.
How much of a percentage?
Is it based on the play?
Yeah.
Over 50% is based on your play.
And how much is based on your partner?
Rich Paul's getting into a bag right here. I know some of you probably sick of him because of the whole LeBron James clutch propaganda machine. But his sit down with Max Kellerman, there's a lot of gems in there. And this question right here is really something that has to be posed when it comes to Under Armour and their side of just their whole partnership with Stephen Curry. What were their goals? Are they actually aligned with hoops culture? Because they do focus on quality and technology. and that is not what sells basketball shoes.
Okay, I think less than you're going to say, because Steph, the four guys I just mentioned, almost no matter what, would have had huge brands because they did something, with the exception of Kobe, who just looked like you squinted at, that's Michael Jordan, right? So that was already there. And then it was, again, we didn't want to let go of it. We didn't have to. But Steph and LeBron both did new things. So who else changed the game like that isn't a big brand?
See,
and that would suggest to me it's not about your partner as much as it is about, I mean, your like shoe company that you work with or whatever, as much as it is about what you did on the court.
See, when I think about brand, yes, I think about play, but the most important thing is, it's very hard to say my brand if your brand hasn't become a business.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the way I look at it. We know what Michael's business became, at $4 billion business, right? And continuing to grow.
And even within that success of Michael Jordan and Nike, they were not necessarily aligned when he first retired. Michael Jordan wanted to take his brand into quality clothing, and that was very expensive and was costing Nike a lot of money. They were not necessarily fully aligned when he first retired. Matter of fact, the evidence is when he sat down with Oprah and premiered his line. If you look at the quality of the clothes, it's very obvious that he was aiming to be a high quality luxury athletic wear brand. And I'm not sure if Nike was aligned into producing that with him. And today, Jordan Brand is not necessarily a lifestyle brand outside of hoops, maybe the shoes, but within that Oprah sit down, you can see Michael Jordan was clearly focused on lifestyle outside of the shoes.
LeBron, obviously, at the height, I think LeBron's business was probably $700 million. I'm talking about annually. Yes. And I think this is where kids get it confused, and I think most athletes get it confused. 99.9% of athletes don't have a business off the court.
Don't have a brand.
I'm saying their brand is what they perceive as a brand is not a business. You have an endorsement portfolio, but when you have a business, here's how it works. Max Kellerman, you're the athlete. Okay. I see your potential. I'm paying you to start. I'm going to pay you. Shoe deals are so much different today, but I'm just going to I'm going to pay you $3 million today.
Oh, sorry. Good. Yeah.
$3 million today over 4 years. Oh, well, if I really believe we can do a business with you, I'm going to pay you that over probably a little bit more, but your first deal will be like 6 or 7 years because it takes 18 months for us to put
Rich, should I take it? Should I take this deal?
Well, we'll talk about that later. Right. It takes 18 months to put a real strategy together, right? If we really believe, right? Then your play, your market, more importantly, your character, your willingness to cooperate. Now, your partner does matter because the product matters. So we're only we're only starting with footwear. You're not getting all this other stuff yet. We got
Iverson, Shaq. There are a couple other brands too. Go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, but Iverson's. I'm talking about business. I don't know what.
I'm just thinking of athletes with brands.
Yeah, yes. AI had a real brand. I don't know. AI's business probably was a little bit bigger than Barkley. Yeah. Barkley probably had the best shoes in all of them.
And always had a huge personality, and you know.
And then Shaq was a little bit different because he decided to do
Bigs don't sell sneakers anyway.
Well, Shaq did. Shaq was a big that sold sneakers. At least his first, the Kamikazes. But nevertheless, so now you get into that part and you have the product, right? Then they decide, okay, how many colorways you're gonna have. To start, you may only have like 8 to 12.
Okay.
And then within that 8 to 12, they do what you call like energy strikes. So in your energy strikes, you're gonna have a smaller SKU of those.
Explain
shoes.
that. What do you mean energy strikes?
So an energy strike may be, I sit with you and you say, man, I want the Giants colorway, right? That goes out, that Giants colorway, to drive energy, but it's not really a retail colorway that you want to have from a mass perspective.
Right, so that's like
It's
tastemakers.
Yes, it's only,
Okay.
but it's driving.
Influencers,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
driving energy. Then you do storytelling around certain things. So now that goes over well. So they invested, they invested $4 million over, 6 years. So that's $24 million. Now, in that span of that 1 year, you did. Let's just say you did 80 million.
You got me an extra $1 million a year there. I appreciate that.
You did 80 million, right? That now gives them the data to say, okay, the market can
Expand
do
the
more.
colorways and all this
Yes.
kind of stuff. Okay.
But with that, we also need you, Max, to do more.
Right.
So now they bring in the marketing team. This year we're going to spend more money on print. We're going to spend more. We're going to do a actual spot. We're going to put you in a spot, depending on, et cetera. So now it has to grow.
Now at that moment, the fact that you get a deal at all means you've separated yourself from a lot of people.
Yes, that's an endorsement
Then this is
deal.
almost like getting to the second deal in sports, like in the NFL, right?
Yes.
So the second deal is, okay, you have succeeded in doing this.
Yes.
Now we're going to expand the colorways. We're gonna grow it, and you now have to do more to push everything.
You have to do more to push
So
everything.
that's kind of like your second contract plateau.
But here's what comes with that. See, what people don't understand is most athletes and most people around the athlete, they want to focus on a transaction. You have to build equity.
Relationships and equity, yeah.
Equity. And what happens is now this is what they're watching. Okay? Now here comes year 2. You have more. I remember vividly, we have to go to China this year. For what?
1.5 billion people there, that's what.
China has more basketball courts than we have schools in America. Like it's and you play outside, so there's an ability to build a different type of shoe that is a little bit more durable and things like that, which is a whole separate market. But stay with me. So you have the Asia Pacific market. So now you're going to China. Now, when are they asking you to go? Dead smack in the middle of summer. After you came off summer league, you tired.
You think you get a little break? Yep. Nope.
But this is part of it. So when you have a shoe deal, that's one thing. Most athletes coming out, they're gonna get a shoe deal. Then you have what you call a PE, which you get to the place of like a player edition, where they kind of put your logo on it or whatever and do some colorways, etc. Then you get to the signature part. If you are able to get to the signature
If you're a signature
part,
athlete, yeah.
this is where you could possibly build a business. Now,
Wow. You have to get through all those levels. And then when you just get up to the signature part, it's a possibility you can actually build a business. It wouldn't be too far-fetched to say with Stephen Curry, they didn't necessarily even get past the first 2 levels. Because once again, Under Armour was not necessarily aligned with hoops culture. That's what really sells the shoe. Of course, you can make an overall comfortable product for Stephen Curry on the court, but just selling shoes to the mass NBA audience, most who are not going to use it to actually hoop, that's a different story. Matter of fact, Under Armour was so misaligned. Once again, how did Bob Myers have concern with Under Armour premiering a new shoe for Stephen Curry in the 2016 finals and saying, hey, he has ankle issues. This shoe is a little bit too low cut. There's even a disconnect with Under Armour internally, because that relationship with Stephen Curry, they should have already known that. So you can only imagine the disconnect with the overall NBA audience.
every athlete wants a signature shoe. It's not in the cards, and it's not realistic. So if someone's in the room telling you you're gonna get a signature shoe, they're lying. It's just not
Unless
realistic.
you're a handful of guys.
And even that, you have to wait. You have to wait because there could be a traffic jam, right? You have to wait till guys kind of fall off. We had this conversation a little bit. Man, I was a part of these rooms, and this is why the Rich Paul rule was so stupid.
Now, right there, Rich Paul said he was in those rooms. Guys had to fall off and wait in line. It makes sense why a lot of players today are signing with, I believe, Atna, that brand that Kyrie signed with, because it seems like Nike, ever since they got Jordan and then he popped off, they went in an acquisition phase where sometimes they necessarily get an athlete and have no plan, but they're playing defense and making sure Adidas or another company don't get them. Look at Caitlin Clark. She was in the WNBA for the first year, and Nike didn't even give her a signature shoe. There was no product available. Shit, if that happened for Caitlin Clark, she's more popular than half the players today. I'm sure she could move product.
Man, I was a part of these rooms, and this is why the Rich Paul rule was so stupid. I'm gonna tell you
The
why.
Rich Paul rule, for those who don't know, was all of a sudden you needed to have a college diploma in X, Y, and Z in order to be an agent. They wanted to push through on a college level. So, and it was clearly, it's called the Rich Paul rule because it was clearly aimed at not letting you be an agent.
Yeah, but what it was about was, I guess they were saying you had to have a higher education.
Yeah.
But here's why that does not work, because the rooms that I was in and allowed to be in and worked alongside people in and gained experience in, there's not enough money. You cannot pay for this experience to learn these things.
Sure.
Right? And most people in my position, no offense, I don't want to sound like I'm making it about me, because I'm not. But what I'm saying is, most representation cannot add value in multifaceted ways in those rooms, right? If your agent has never bought sneakers, how could he be in a sneaker meeting and add value? What is he actually saying?
It's actually not much different what you're describing than like how Warren Buffett invests in stocks, right? Like you have to know what you're doing, have a philosophy about how to go about it. Is this thing useful? How is it useful?
They can talk about getting you more money. Okay, and that's great for most guys all the way up, but I'm talking about the
Taking
guys that can build
level.
a business.
Yeah.
So if I can build a business and you only talking to me about, okay, I can get you this much money over X amount of years, yeah, that's great, but you can't help me build a business.
Right.
So now, as the athlete, I gotta look at that a little bit different.
Hey, is Rich Paul talking about Under Armour? They gave Stephen Curry a nice deal, but overall, when it comes to hoops culture and just selling shoes, and even through the height of Stephen Curry's popularity, they couldn't do anything with all that recognition equity that he had. I mean, shit, he was changing the NBA game. The whole league switched up the play style, but yet there's no major marketing ploy in the same way Nike kind of went on with Michael Jordan. The Be Like Mike song, the Gatorade commercials, just you don't see that type of marketing when it came to Stephen Curry. What's the storyline? What's the slogan? There's nothing.
And you only talking to me about, okay, I can get you this much money over X amount of years. Yeah, that's great, but you can't help me build a business.
Right.
So now, as the athlete, I gotta look at that a little bit different. And I'll tell you, like,
should we put like the number to Clutch Sports up on the screen?
No, I don't even know, because I don't even
Just
want
in case
that.
you're
No,
an athlete and you.
because I don't even want that. But what I will say, when I look at guys, and this is why with Penny, Little Penny, you had Little Penny.
That was such a great campaign.
This is what I'm saying.
Such a great campaign.
So when you have that and you're able to sell shoes, now what happens is now they go to the apparel side. They give you 2 t-shirts, 2 shorts, maybe 1 pair of socks. Then they go to the accessories. Then now you got a basketball with your logo on it. You got, this thing, that thing.
That was the level Michael Jordan was at as soon as he retired. He had the colognes, he had the basketball, he had the accessories. But MJ also had in mind to create a lifestyle brand. Maybe something you could wear on a date. Once again, the video is available on YouTube. You guys can check out Michael Jordan sit down with Oprah as he debuted the lifestyle portion of the Jordan brand.
You know, when Michael Jordan came out, there was a Michael Jordan basketball. I'm a Knicks fan. I'm in New York.
Yes, you had to
They
buy
sold
one.
it at Paragon Sports on 17th Street, right by Union Square. And it was $8. I swear to God, Rich, I put it on layaway. I was like 11 years old and put it on layaway.
But here's my thing. So
put an
now,
$8 basketball on layaway.
Hey, shout out to Paragon Sports. I know exactly what Max Kellerman is talking about. Right over there by Union Square. That store low-key for people in NYC at the time. They had access to certain Jordan brand products that wasn't necessarily being sold in other places. And the real main part of that store was really the North Face and just kind of things you buy when you go skiing. You would never think they had exclusive Jordan brand merchandise.
Accessories may be doing $30 million a year.
Right.
Apparel may be doing $100 million a year. I remember one year, I think LeBron had one coat in China I think that one coat did $80 million. And then you have footwear. So your footwear business between domestic and really Asia Pacific, Europe wasn't really a thing like that.
Right.
That's why when Giannis came along, they really wanted to make it because, wow, we got this guy from Europe.
Now NBA Europe, like,
We can build with him. But before that, it was all European football. So basketball wasn't really a thing. That's why we did more so trips to China, Asia Pacific markets versus going to Europe. We did a little bit, but not a ton. But I say all that to say, for all the athletes out there, like, again, when you get a chance to become a signature athlete, you really have to sit down and now reevaluate. I don't care what nobody say. And I'm not reevaluate the team at that point because you have a real shot because now I have what they call, I get my base, then I get my royalty.
Now, later on in this segment, we'll hear from Jaylen Brown as he talked about a lot of the former NBA athletes who signed these mega deals. They were actually upset years later about the royalty rates. So that's a whole nother beast right there because we're always hearing the front headlines, oh, the ex-player signs a $100 million deal, but we really never get to hear the details within that contract. And according to Jaylen Brown, a lot of the athletes, especially the retired ones, they're upset about it.
Right.
Your royalty is where it really goes. And you miss somebody, because I'm going to tell you, who had one of the best shoes and one of the best brands, and he's probably going to do it again. It's Kyrie Irving.
Oof.
Because he got taste.
Kyrie,
and he's creative.
First of all,
I'm just telling you.
No question.
One of the best shoes.
Kyrie had one of the best shoes ever.
And he's doing it again. He's doing a great job with his new partner. But now you have to reevaluate all of this stuff because you get a royalty. Your royalty is where you really win. When people look at MJ's business, yeah, MJ made the money because of his royalty. He built the business and he had a royalty. Then he probably redid it all over again. I don't know what it's like now.
Yeah, Nike restructured that. I'll cover that later on in a Patreon episode. I'm not sure if I can make that information public, but Nike low-key restructured the Jordan brand in a way where it doesn't have necessarily an effect on their stocks, because Michael Jordan wanted to do a lot more with the brand besides just making it athletic wear. He wanted a lifestyle brand that has quality.
But that's where it really
Rich,
comes.
but I brought up the Damian Lillard line. He had some song that he made, but I overheard it, stuck in my head. Don't believe that time is money.
I get passionate about that type of stuff.
No.
I'm not selling. I'm not selling
because
I don't want people to think that.
That's super interesting.
You can only represent people that
you go
value,
to the website and
no, you can only represent people that value expertise, and we're losing that in our industry a lot.
So Lillard says, "Don't believe time is money. Money is time. You stay focused. You look up, and your money's fine." I brought it up on Wednesday. The thing is, Rich, everything you just said, with some exceptions, like there are guys like AI or Kyrie, but even those guys,
why do
those guys build businesses? You could say, well, there are other guys like Marbury or whoever else.
I'll tell you why.
I'm saying what it comes down to is actually athletic excellence. You could say whatever you want about the way AI dressed, this, that, the other, who his partners were, all this. AI, when you put your eyes on him,
athletic
no one
excellence
was like that.
But that's only 50% of it. You're missing the big piece.
It's more than 50.
No, it's not.
Why is it then? If it's not more than 50,
a big piece.
Who else was AI who didn't wind up a brand? Or Kyrie, who didn't? When you say Kyrie, you're talking about probably skill for skill, the most skilled player who ever lived. You think it's an accident that he's a business?
No. What I'm saying is, yes, it's 50% basketball.
More than 50.
Okay, let's just say it's 60%.
All right.
Right?
I'll say 80%.
I disagree.
Yeah.
The other
What do you know? You've never done this
The
before.
other piece of that is, both of those guys you naming, one, they're relatable. Because you don't walk down the street thinking you could be this 6'9", 6'10" person.
Right.
You think you could be
Steph is much more relatable
you think you could be Kyrie,
Wemby.
You think you could be AI.
Yeah.
The other thing is, they connect to culture. AI had suburban kids wearing cornrows,
no doubt,
and arm sleeves, right? AI had every rapper. AI had Bentleys parked on the sidewalk that he forgot that he even owned. He had the mink to the floor. He had the platinum, iced out. He had everything. He connected to culture, and he's dropping 40.
Yeah.
Because guess what? When AI used to come to Cleveland, and you could ask him this if you ever see him, you know who's the first person he was calling? Me. Rich, where you at?
1-800.
No, I'm serious. Rich, where you at? I'm at the Ritz. Pick me up. And then we would go to dinner, we would hang out. That was my guy.
Yeah.
Right? If it's the same thing with Kai. Kai wanted his shoe to look a certain way. He wanted the color. And then I'm gonna tell you the last thing that matters more than just as much as anything else, price point.
Wow, those two things right there, the price point and connecting to culture, is something that Under Armour lacked when it came to Stephen Curry. Under Armour is a quality brand. They focus on the technology and the quality, so their price point. And second of all, they did not help Stephen Curry bridge that gap between just dominating on the court and connecting culturally to the overall basketball culture. There's no slogan, there's no commercial where we actually remember from Stephen Curry with Under Armour. They're lacking on both of those things right there. Just look at the impact of Nike when Michael Jordan Be Like Mike commercials with the Spike Lee and the Mars character. You got Brooklyn connected to that. The Penny Hardaway commercials with Chris Rock, the doll. The way Chris Rock spoke was so funny, so flamboyant, flashy. You gotta have those memorable moments. And when Under Armour is just so focused on the tech, the quality of the product, there's a misalignment there.
You get to a place where you start outpricing families, it's going to hurt your business. So if I'm at that sweet spot of $110 to $120 and my product is fly and I connect and I'm a real player, now you're starting to hit. I'm telling, if you talk to any executive at any brand, Adidas, New Balance, Under Armour, Nike, they're gonna tell you, Rich is exactly right.
You know, it's so funny, even when Under Armour made the announcement that they're parting ways with Stephen Curry, they stated that they're going to focus more on product innovation and performance. Once again, when it comes to overall hoops culture, Under Armour, they're not necessarily synced in. You gotta bite into some of that cultural cachet and just steal some of that market share. We really haven't seen too much effort when it comes to those issues with Under Armour.
I'm telling you. So now, if a mom goes into a store, I got two young boys. I got to choose between a $200 shoe and I have to choose between a $120 shoe. And LeBron, in his meetings all the time, he had one of the biggest issues because he would say all the time, I don't want to outprice kids that come from where I come from.
There's a flip side to that, which is, number one, every athlete you just mentioned, Marbury was like that, not like AI. Lillard is like that, not like Kyrie.
Okay,
not in terms of like, oh my God, what did I just see? Okay, so and there were, Dominique was like that, not like MJ. Like it's so in each case, it's not an accident that the premier guy doing that thing is the guy who winds up with all this stuff. That's not coincidence. You can't point to one dude where it was true and he wasn't like that.
AI only had two good shoes. To answer the question. After that, he didn't have it.
See, right there, even though AI only had two good shoes, he did have the other aspects of it. The cultural connection, the cachet, and also not only he was killing it on the court, but he was unapologetically him. Unlike a lot of today's athletes where they try to tinker between being a corporate nice guy and just dominating on the court, Stephen Curry plays a lot into that. The audience overall has always respected authenticity. That's why Ant-Man gets a lot of love, especially from the media.
Also, in those times, especially in the 90s, the basketball shoe was the lifestyle shoe.
Yep.
Today it's harder because kids only wear the basketball shoe to actually play basketball.
Right, okay, so that's a good point. But the reason I brought that up is the price point. I remember my mother, like when I'm like 10 years old and I wanted new shell tops because mine were dirty and they were $50. $50 for that back then in the 80s, that's a lot of money, right? Mm-hmm. So the suede Pumas were maybe $10 less, right? So you wind up getting the Pumas. When Jordans came out, Rich, they were $100. No sneaker back then was I'm talking about like the early mid 80s. no sneaker back then was $100.
That's not true.
But what was $100 back then?
New Balance.
New Balance were expensive and they weren't $100.
That's not true.
I remember the first
Gemini.
pair of New Balance, my father got them, and I was like,
why do you think?
they were like,
let me ask you this question.
$70, and that was a lot of money.
Why do you think that New Balance became so popular in DC?
In DC, I don't know.
Because of the price point.
But wait, Rich, the $100 price point on the Jordans became aspirational.
Because because they had someone that you could see on TV playing a game every day wearing that product.
But it also because of the price point, it was no more expensive to make the sneaker, but it became a symbol of some kind of wealth or conspicuous consumption or something that you wanted to floss with.
But you're hitting on something. So are you saying that this is marketing at its finest?
Sure.
See, many people think marketing is endorsements. Marketing is not endorsements. Endorsements are endorsements. Marketing is storytelling. So you have the individual.
Right.
You tell a great story that people can buy into and believe. You make that product. Now, what color was the product? It matters.
Hey, Rich Paul's referring right back to his example of creating his own shoe with New Balance, the unbothered, the colorway. The explanation of just coming home after work or just coming home after school. And the purple colorway signifies that glass of wine, that juice, or the juice that the kid would drink. You see the storyline, and it bleeds into the product. When it comes to Zion Williams and Jordan Brand, 5 years in, what was the product? What was the storyline? That's why we seen that deal dissolve. Matter of fact, that's why we see a lot of star players, I would say in the past 10 years or so, their products end up dissolving. Ja Morant looks like he's next on that list. Cade Cunningham being Nike's brand new signature athlete right now, he does have a better storyline. Not only the city that he plays for, with just that overall Detroit chip on the shoulder, everyone's against us, but also Cade dealt with kind of being overlooked as a first overall pick when he came into the league. Things were kind of quiet, and the Pistons went from losing a lot to actually now standing on top of the conference, and they still play with that chip on their shoulder. So it's kind of looking like it's an easier path to building a product and just having that storyline behind Cade.
Marketing is storytelling. So you have the individual.
Right.
You tell a great story that people can buy into and believe. You make that product. Now, what color was the product? It matters.
The first Jordans were like the red, black, and white.
Right. And now, do you think they would have been red, black, and white if he played for the Bulls? Either way?
No, they were red, black, and white because he played for the Bulls.
I disagree.
The first ones, yeah, come on.
Because the first LeBron's was red, black, and white, and he played for the Cavs.
But that came after MJ.
But what I'm telling you is there's colors that matter in marketing, just like in the restaurant business. Take the best.
But the Jordan 3s, which were the best ones, were the little fake snake.
No, it's
skin.
called elephant.
The elephant, right?
Yeah,
whatever they call it.
Those are red, black, and white.
No, but the ones I'm talking about were basically like white with a little gray and then like a little red.
That's red. That's just the white. That's the white dominant color.
Not like Bulls colors. You didn't look at that and think Bulls, but
Max,
the first one you thought Bulls.
And also when it comes to Michael Jordan, the fact that the NBA had banned his Air Jordan 1s, that helped with the marketing. I'm sure Nike was paying those fines because they knew it was going to generate to sales. That's not only a company at the time taking a chance. It seems like they just had a better overall understanding of hoops culture, something that Under Armour still to this day is lacking.
Take the best restaurants, the best fast foods restaurants.
Okay, fast food.
What color are they?
Yep. A lot of red.
Not just red.
White. Yep.
And what other color?
You're saying black?
No. Yellow.
Yellow. That's
Wendy's,
right.
McDonald's, Raising Cane's, Carl's Jr., In-N-Out.
In-N-Out.
There's something when you're marketing.
Burger King is more or less, yeah.
Yeah, but when you're doing marketing, these type of things matter, Max.
Okay.
So going back to red, black, and white, those colors matter, whether you're on the Bulls or not. But it just so happened that it lined up that he was on the Bulls, and yes, there's that color.
I will point out that the Bulls have black, and they basically took the black away going forward. And every brand you just mentioned is a lot of red and yellow and white, not so much black in those brands,
no,
right?
but I'm talking about it's
so
different.
The first ones were the Bulls colors.
But what I'm saying is, no, I'm talking about in the restaurant, it's red, white, and yellow.
Yes.
In footwear, it's red, black, and white for the most cases. Is what I'm saying. And
Wonder
no,
why black in footwear and not in restaurants.
no, and with that colorway, you were coming out with 3 different colorways: white base, black base, and then the other colorway I just told you about is basically an energy. You tell a story. In MJ's case, he come white, red, and black, red, and white, and then you tell a story. Back to North Carolina, etc.
Right.
He comes Carolina.
With the powder blue, yeah.
It was only, by the way, back then, it was only 3 colorways. And so if you bought a pair of shoes, but here's the other thing. People didn't buy MJs because they wanted to be just like Michael Jordan. That was half of the people, half of the consumers. You know what the other half was? They wanted to be like Max, who had the BMW and the cute girl that had on Michael Jordan.
Sure.
So now,
the influencers.
if you get both of those consumers, you have the entire market share.
That's interesting.
Because
so you have to have the elite athlete that's different than the others. Then you have to have the influencers who sport their thing, and then you get
basketball teams, high school basketball teams, for the most part, they play in a team shoe and wore their Jordans when they left the locker room. Not
what was like a Bear your best player in high school? High school, there was a Bear that could ball.
But if you actually did wear your shoe in game, pennies, Jordans, Barclays, and you had them again when you left the locker room, now you was really at a
you couldn't do that with the Jordans because they would crease right here.
Well, it depends.
You needed another pair.
I did.
You wore them with the you played in them. They had the crease right here, and then you wore them.
I played in them, and I had another pair in my bag.
That's what I'm saying. Crazy. You needed another pair.
Yeah.
Yeah. More MJs being sold. I hope you learned something from this.
No, I hope you learned something, because this is a topic we could talk about forever.
No question.
You know, it sounds like Rich Paul is talking a lot about the D-boys back in the day when Jordan was playing. Just some of the fan base actually wanting to be like them with the Jordans on. So there is a cultural component to it. And timing overall does play a part. Today, I would say you would need the social media influencer to be wearing the shoes. But right before we hear from Jaylen Brown about some of the athletes and their royalty rates, let's check out Michael Jordan, as he himself spoke about some of the modern day players not necessarily having a real brand if they're not winning on the court. Again, the dynamics right now, due to social media, it creates somewhat of an organic hype like Zion Williams had coming into the NBA with the rise of TikTok at the same time. But with him not necessarily being on the court as much and not even winning or even going in a direction where the team is actually competing on a high level, you don't really have anything.
Now it's like it's a prerequisite. You know, everybody has to have a logo. Everybody has to have a...
You know why, right?
Well, I'm pretty sure I'm part of the reason why everybody tries to get a logo, but
brand, right?
A brand,
right? Brand Jordan.
But the thing is that brand is established based on what I did on the basketball court. You know, I didn't put the brand before I put the work. Mm-hmm. You know, right. I put the work first, and then the brand evolved based on the work.
Right.
A lot of times it's different. You see it in every sport, not just basketball, football, baseball. Everybody's walking around with a logo and a hat, and I get it. But whatever I did here is never going to affect what I do on the basketball court.
But do you think that's harder now for guys? There's social media and all this stuff, so they got to cut through the clutter here a bit, right?
Yeah, that's true. I like to think that if I was playing today, I like to think that no matter what, my game is going to validate whatever I try to participate in away from the game. It's really tough for the kids today, and most of them do a great job of navigating what you're talking about. That's as long as you understand that this is always going to be what you're remembered for. Basketball and your love for basketball should always be pure. We would play this game, I've always said this, we would play this game for free. We did. And now we just so happen to get paid for it. Generationally, you know, I like to think that most of the time that people will remember Michael Jordan based on what he did on the basketball court and not always the commercials that he did.
You know, it's tough because today a lot of these athletes are really living off of the sweat equity that Michael Jordan had provided to these companies when they seen that blueprint of just giving Jordan that deal because of his on-court success. And now major companies like Nike are pulling back from those type of endorsement deals. The options do look different. Not only they could secure longer term contracts with younger players through the NIL circuit, but they can get them at a cheaper rate, really just based off of all hype. With that said, you gotta wonder, what are the royalty rates for some of these kids in case they transition into the NBA and they're now selling shoes? Because the players that came before them, while they were already in the league, maybe in their second or third year, already multi-millionaires, they were still getting finessed. This is where the final part of the segment comes in right here, as Jaylen Brown gives great insight to this while speaking with Stephen A. Smith. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
I don't have a problem with the industry. I do. You know, I'm lying. You know, I do.
Okay, I was going to say, go ahead, Jaylen.
I do.
All right, go ahead.
I think the industry definitely needs some new energy, some new creativity, and some new options. I think the way, you know, the shoe companies go about issuing deals and illustrating people's value in terms of IP, in terms of creative control, in terms of like how involved you are in the process, I think it needs to change. I listen to the voices of our older generation. I know players that I can name, superstars, that would tell you right now, man, they frustrated as hell. You know, their stuff can't come out when they want it to come out. They have no input or control. They was forced to renegotiate certain percentages that they think they should have more value. And they wish it was other options.
Now, these are guys that are already superstars feeling this way. So you can only imagine under NIL and just kids being able to lock in certain sponsorship deals. We can only imagine what's in the fine print. It's not like these kids with no major responsibilities are even thinking about how this is going to affect them in the future once they retire. That was one of the more interesting things that I was watching play out before this whole NIL situation was rolled out. Keep in mind, the California governor, Newsom, he sat down on LeBron James's show, The Shop, and they kind of rolled out, and we see how it plays out today. That has benefited not only the states, as that is another tax revenue source, because a lot of these colleges are under the nonprofit entity. And also, LeBron James, one of his major financial backers is Nike. So now they can secure certain athletes that are popular at a lot younger age where they're not necessarily concerned about the royalty rates. But it is what it is. There's a lot of innovation that is needed overall because that 1980s, 1990s Michael Jordan blueprint is pretty much running dry, especially in the age of social media. Nike, Adidas, as well as the other major athletic wear corporations have a lot of competition today from smaller brands, giving athletes more control of their brands, as well as the consumers. They have a lot more choices and different price points that they can go to. And the way us as fans, as well as the players, connect to the products is very different than it was in the days before social media. This is where we're seeing the importance of brand alignment. And the Stephen Curry Under Armour situation, it didn't come by surprise that it didn't work out. But that's all I have for today. You fellas definitely hit up the links in the description below. Check out my NBA True Story playlist. And until next time, you fellas stay safe. Peace.